Welcome to the show. Hi, I'm Randy Jeffers, and we are live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Well, we have a really special guest today. We have Mr. Frederick Cager, who is the pastor of a brand new church in Las Vegas, Nevada, called Inspire, right?
Absolutely.
It is great to have you here, and wow, what a venture.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we're excited, even in meeting you, we're excited about what's about to happen, so we're looking forward to it.
Well, I'll tell you, you're taking on quite an undertaking. I'm a preacher's kid. I don't know if you know that,
no,
but
I didn't know you're PK.
I'm a PK. My dad was a pastor when I was young, growing up, and of course, in those days we had to move around a lot. You know, you go a year or two here and find a little bigger church, and a year or two there, and you go somewhere else.
My wife's a PK.
Is she really?
My wife's a PK.
Yeah. So tell us about this. First of all, it's called Inspire, and it's getting ready to open up when?
Well, we've already started doing meetings, and we're not going to have our first service until 2018.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but for me, I've pastored for about 20 years, almost 15, 16, almost 20 years.
Wow.
And started a few churches, and one of the things that I've learned is what we want to do is, before just having a church service, we want to make sure that all of the people understand who we are, what we're about, what we're doing. The key word is discipling. So we just want to make sure people are on the same page, and not just having a church service, but having a church that is impactful, a church that has measures that we can know that we're making a difference. So it's not about just having a church service, but it's about bringing people together for a common goal and a common mission.
The right people for the right reason.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Do you anticipate having a specific location when you start? Are you going to start this the actual services in your home like a lot of people do, or
Sure.
how do you anticipate that happening?
Well, what we're doing right now is we're doing every Saturday at 6:30. We're just meeting as a group, as small groups. That is to make sure that, like I said, all of us are on the same page. But we're looking. Matter of fact, I had a meeting this morning, and I can't say names or anything, but a very productive meeting about a new location in the building. So we've already, like I said, we've already started. And when I tell you, Randy, I mean, we're excited. Really, I mean, beyond excited.
Well, you're an old hand at this. You've been doing it for 20 years, so I mean, you understand what the mission is, and
Sure.
and but this is. Did you start your first church? Have you done that before?
I did. I'm the founder of a church, and matter of fact, and then I helped plant 2 other churches. And I've gotten up a little bit older in age now, so it's like I tell people I liken it to Michael Jordan. When Jordan, matter of fact, your sports memorabilia, we were just looking at it. I was in there looking at some stuff. When Jordan was young, you know, he was taking the ball to the hole and slamming on everybody, and the tongue was out. But as he got older, he developed his defense and his three-pointer. I'm in the defense and three-pointer stage of life right now. So even with starting the church, the years past, I was able, because of that youth and that vigor, to go out there and run. Now, through years, and you know this, as you live life, you make some mistakes, you say, hey, this is a little better this way. Wisdom now tells me, hey, make sure everything is lined up correctly, more strategic with the planning, making sure that we have the goal in mind, the mission in mind, just making sure it's done correctly.
Well, I understand you have an amazing wife. A little birdie told me that. We have a mutual friend, and tell us about her.
First of all, I am married to one of the best women that walk the face of the earth.
Wow.
My wife's name is LaVon, and really, I mean this sincerely. I'm not saying this. If it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would be sitting here today. My wife is just a beautiful woman inside and out. Not only does she love God, but she's just a beautiful person. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, I was thinking about her on the way out here. And she's a giver. We both give, but she's that person that'll give the house away. You know what I mean? And just a wonderful woman, warm-hearted woman, and I love her tremendously. Man.
And you've been married for how long?
We've been together for 10 years.
Wow.
10 years. And we were just joking about this the other night. You know, when you've been with somebody so long, you know what they're going to say before they say it. You know how they're thinking. So
that's right.
Yeah, she's a beautiful person.
Oh, that's wonderful.
She's a beautiful person.
Children?
We have 5 grandchildren.
Wow.
We have 5 grandchildren. I'm a grandfather, and my wife, she had a son before we got married. So I've been talking about either adopting or surrogate. So she's like, look, I'm gonna have a nanny if we do that. So we're in discussions right now. So pray for me. I'm trying to make some moves, and I want a baby, so I want a little girl. I want me a girl.
Well, if you find an extra one, I'll take one
You'll
too.
take one. I want a little girl.
I have 2 boys. I tried really hard to get a girl, but I couldn't figure out how it works. So
I wanted my mom raised 3 boys, and she said I always wanted a girl.
Yeah.
So I want a little girl.
oh, that's wonderful. So how long have you been in Vegas?
Well, we've been in Vegas for about a little more than a year. When I moved here from pastoring, I was pastoring, and then we had some businesses that we own, and God has blessed us. I was able to sell those businesses, and so what I wanted to do was take a year off, and so I took a year to come out and learn Vegas, because Vegas is a different area from the South. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Vegas is a lot different from Memphis, and no bad nor good. Now we love Vegas. When I say we love it, I love the energy here. Vegas has an energy to it that you may not get in other cities, and I love that energy. So we've been here about a year and a half, and we absolutely love Vegas.
So you moved from the South in the Bible Belt,
Absolutely.
and now you're in Sin City. That is quite a little switch.
Quite a jump.
Quite a jump.
People always ask me, why would you move to Vegas? I said, well, if I'm a pastor, if I'm a preacher, wouldn't Sin City be the perfect place to go to? But I think Vegas, and it's ironic you asked that question because I was talking to somebody earlier. I think Vegas is a city that sits on a hill. Vegas is a world-renowned city.
It is.
And just imagine what could be done in a city that has this type of recognition if you're doing some things that are positive.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it's a coincidence. Now, when we came here, I can't tell you that I knew exactly what God was doing. I can't say that to you. But what I can say is we just trusted God, knowing that we knew that He was telling us to come here. But it's a city that sits on a hill. It's a world-renowned city. And I think Vegas, it's a wonderful opportunity here to make a difference in the community and the city and abroad. And I think it's a great place.
You know, it's funny because a lot of people think that if you live in Vegas, you know, you're gambling every night, you're in the nightclubs, and it's like the Strip, right? But what they don't realize is it's a large city, and a very normal city. I mean, it's pretty much, if you don't go to the Strip or downtown on Fremont Street, it's pretty normal. And I heard a statistic not too long ago that Las Vegas, out of all the major cities, has more churches per capita than any other major city.
Really?
And that's a really interesting stat.
Wow.
But it's still a lot of people that don't go to church, don't know God, or they're waiting for you, right?
You know what? And the thing about it is that what we bring, and coming from the South, coming from the Bible Belt, there's a church on every corner where I come from. Not only is it a church, there's a church between the churches. So where I come from, somewhat, and no disrespect to the city where I was raised, you know, I love the area, and I lived in Atlanta, New York, Jersey. So my background before pastoring is I was in the social work field. I was a social worker. I went to school to be a psychiatrist.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to open up my own practice. So Vegas, and you're right, so many people think that if you live in Las Vegas, you're gambling, and no disrespect, I'm just not a gambler. I wasn't a gambler before I gave my life to God. I'm not wired for gambling. To give you my money, and hopefully you'll give it back.
Well, life's a gamble anyway.
You know what I mean? So, but when I say it has so much to offer here. Yeah. It's a beautiful place. So many people, when we came out here, my wife's godparents took us out, and they were like, there's so much more to Vegas. They took us to Hoover Dam when we first came here, and we were like, wow, you would never know all of this was here.
Yeah.
You know, and we understand that the gambling is the advertisement, the marketing, and we understand that, but Vegas is a wonderful and beautiful place.
Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit. So you started being a pastor 20 years ago.
Sure.
And that was in Memphis, or?
In Memphis. I started when I was 19. Started working in the social work field. What happened is my brother used to work in the social work field, so I had an open door because he had a very high position. And by 20 years old, I was working in the social work field. So I started in juvenile court in Memphis in an open house juvenile facility. Then went to a maximum security juvenile facility. Served as a counselor there. After a while, I moved to Atlanta. I was a director of teens for the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club of Greater Atlanta. Served as a counselor for the United Methodist Children's Christian Home. And so my entire life has been, and I just had to fill out some information yesterday, and I was talking about this. For me, my entire life has been career should I say, social work based, in the sense of it's not always just in the church and the four walls,
Mm-hmm.
but ministry and life is just being that nice person, being a good guy.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to beat everyone up. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can just let your light shine. Let people look at you and
Walk
say,
your
"What is
talk.
it?"
Right.
Yeah, more than that. You know,
Uh-huh.
like people that live the life.
That's right.
And so my entire life has been that. But I started pastoring. I planted the church and started pastoring in early 2000s. I think like 02, 03.
Uh-huh.
And we did pretty well. I mean, God blessed us. Life was good. We just felt as though there's a book by a gentleman by the name of Jim Collins. It's called Good to Great.
Right. Another book.
You know the book. And I felt as though we were good,
Uh-huh.
but I said God had something great for us, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes one of our biggest mistakes in life is that we trade in great for good,
Uh-huh.
and we settle with good when God has so much more for us to be great. And that's not just in church and in the four walls, but you can have a great marriage, you can have great children. Doesn't mean life is going to be perfect. Doesn't
Right.
mean life is going to always be easy, but it does mean that you have a goal to be the absolute best that you can be, and that's why
Yeah.
we're here.
And so, what does it take to be the best that you can be? What do you think?
You know what? I believe, I was telling somebody this the other day, I don't believe that I have any competition on earth. And what I mean by that is that the only competition that I have is what God has put on the inside of me.
Right.
That's the only competition I have.
Uh-huh.
And the Bible teaches us in Romans 12:2, it says, "Look, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, perfect, and acceptable will of God." God has so much in store for people. I just think at times, and it's a multiplicity of reasons why there's been an issue. Number one, sometimes it's the presentation that we as believers give. Sometimes we can give a presentation that may not be the absolute best, that may not be the most inviting at times to people. But what we've got to understand is that God loves you so much that He has the absolute best for you.
Right.
He has the absolute best for you. The difficulty sometimes is submitting to what He wants for us, because what He wants for us may not necessarily be the road that we want to take sometimes.
Right.
You know what I
And
mean?
often not. Right.
Often
Yeah.
not. Often
Yeah.
not. You know, the best that He has for us may mean that I need to forgive you.
Yeah.
That you may have done something that hurt me, but I need to forgive you. And that forgiveness opens a door for even greater opportunities. But there are times that we close doors because we just won't do the simple things that God has told us to do. And that may be forgiving someone. That may be moving on from a situation. And being great, that I have discovered, is first of all tapping into that relationship with the Father. It's the key to it all. It's the key to it all. It's the lifeline. It's the lifeline. It's like how do I get the best out of my television if it's not plugged up?
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and it's the same with God. If you're not plugged into Him, if you don't have that relationship with Him, you can never experience the greatness that He really has for you. So what I have discovered is that my relationship with the Father, staying in tune with Him, and staying on point with what He wants, it only brings out the best in my life.
Oh, that's fabulous. You know, that's a subject that is rarely heard on TV shows, interview
Yeah,
shows.
right.
Maybe televangelists will talk about things like that, but it's not considered politically correct to talk about these things, right?
Right,
But you have this exciting venture happening. We're going to have this great church in Las Vegas called Inspire Church.
Right.
And let's talk a little bit about that and how it differs, because in the Bible Belt, when you go down the South, churches are different, aren't they?
It's you deal with, in my opinion, I always often say there's three different mindsets, or three different spirits, or however you want to take it, but three different things that you deal with in the South mainly. You deal with a mindset or a spirit of religion. Religion is simply a systematic way of doing things. You can be a religious smoker. You can be a religious drinker, meaning you're systematically doing this. So when we speak of religion, a lot of times you can have it. Jesus says, "Look, you're doing the actions on the outside, but it's not in your heart."
Yeah.
And you can be a religious person. In the South, we deal with, sad to say, there's a lot of poverty in certain areas.
Sure.
And I think too what makes us different and what makes me different, my background is not just in church, but my background is business and the social work field. So there's certain things that I equate not to just a spiritual aspect, but also there are things educational wise. When you don't have education, all of these things are tied into poverty. They said that level of education determines how much money you make over your lifetime, whether that's a high school diploma or if that's a college degree. Now that doesn't mean everybody's direction is going to be college, that I understand, because education is so much bigger than just going to college. You have people like Steve Jobs, who never wrote a computer program in his life, but helped build one of the biggest computer companies in the world because he was able to tap into who he was. From the South, we deal with poverty, and we also deal with a lot of division, and we still deal with a lot of racism. And coming out here to the West Coast and Vegas, you see more diversity, and
Right.
that is something that we're looking forward to as a church too. That it's not a black thing, it's not a white thing, it's a God thing. You and I are brothers. We may not have the same mother, but we got the same father. And so that's one of the things I believe that makes us different. It makes me different as a pastor, that my background is not just from the aspect of church per se, but it is a culmination of things, it's a combination of things. There's a pie, and there are many pieces to that pie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you're from Memphis, and you know
Yeah.
that's Elvis country, and and I know.
I used to get ridiculed about that.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Because I used to like Elvis. Elvis
course,
is bad, man.
what's
I
not to like, right?
Elvis is bad. When he's young, Elvis was bad, man.
He's the greatest.
Yeah.
But you know, you have white churches and you have black churches throughout the South, and it's still like that a lot. And
Right.
and you know the black churches that I've visited have this incredible music, and I know Elvis was inspired by that. But it's different. It's a different way of worshiping, and then you have white churches that are sort of more laid back, a little more stoic, you know, just different. And I'm sure that's affected you somehow.
Well,
a little bit, right?
It has, and there's a difference. There's a difference, and then too, there's a cultural difference. One of the things I think
Randy.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Jeffrey's his last name.
Jeffers, yeah,
Randy. One of the things that I think that I see a lot is a lot of times we think that our churches are diverse, but really they're not. They're not. And I say that from this perspective. There's a difference between diversity and conformity.
Yeah.
Conformity is that you've got to change and you've got to be this person for me to accept you. Diversity is you may eat something that I don't eat. I may dress a different way, but there is a mutual love and respect for one another.
Right.
What I've seen even with worship styles and things in the churches is that there's a big cultural difference. But I'm a firm believer that you can have things in a way that as long as there's an understanding. What makes us different is we want to be that church, Randy. We want to be that church that has the spiritual and the practical. And a lot of times it's you go places and it's either far left or you go to a place and it's far right, but there's no balance. There's a pastor by the name of Rick Warren who has Purpose-Driven Church. It's a book that I require leaders to read because it talks about churches being balanced. That it's not just about teaching, it's not just about worship, it's not just about activism, but it is a culmination of all of that working together to be a church that is balanced. And I think that makes a world of difference.
So, Inspired Church, let's say 2 years from now, what's it going to look like?
2 years from now, Inspired Church, that's a wonderful question. You threw me. Everything else I might have been prepared for, but that's a great question. 2 years from now, we want to be a church that is impactful. And impactful meaning by that time, hopefully, we're preparing to have another church plant to come out of us. Our goal is not just to touch Las Vegas, but it is to allow Las Vegas to be the place that is the board that gets us the opportunity to touch the world. In 2 years, we want to touch as many souls as possible. And that is not just having a Sunday morning experience. I'm grateful for the Sunday morning experience. I love the Sunday morning experience. I grew up in the Sunday morning experience, and in my opinion, there's nothing greater than the Sunday morning experience. What we want to do is make sure that the Sunday morning experience is then equated to your everyday life. So in 2 years, we want to make sure that we're not only touching as many souls as possible, but in my heart, as a pastor, I want to go into the political arena. We want to go into the financial arena. I think what we've allowed to happen as the church, we've allowed everyone to tell us what the church should be instead of being the church.
Right.
And what I mean by that, I just had this conversation with someone this morning. Sunday morning is great, but God is bigger than Sunday morning. He's so much bigger than Sunday morning. And so as the church, as the kingdom, we've got to start to infiltrate the political systems. We've got to start to infiltrate the financial systems. We've got to start to infiltrate the educational system, the 7 spheres of influence. And in 2 years, it is our goal to have our hands in as much as we can when it concerns influence and change.
Oh, that's fabulous. Well, you know, people watch us from all over the world and this network, and of course, they're all invited to come to Vegas and come to worship at Inspire Church when it gets opened up. But a lot of people from Vegas watch us, and for those that are watching us right now, what do you say to them when you open the doors? You're obviously, everyone's invited. You're going to invite them all, right?
Absolutely.
And why would they go there as opposed to somewhere else?
You know what? And that's a question I'm glad you asked, and it is something that I've actually thought about. What makes us different?
Right.
What makes us different is, number one, we want you to be able to experience God, to experience Him. And when I say experience God, meaning I don't want to be that pastor that I'm the man, I'm the guy that's telling you about God always. What I want to be is a conduit that helps you to build your relationship with God. Because at 2 in the morning, at 3 in the morning, I can't be there for you, but He can. So what makes us different is, number one, our goal is to empower you, to let you know who you are in Christ, to let you know the opportunities that have already been set up for you, who God has really called you to be, who God has ordained you to be. There is something that God has placed just for you. There is a calling that God has given just for you. And here's another thing. Every calling is not a pastor. Every calling is not from the pulpit. Every calling is not a preacher. But we need people that are Christians that are doing television, Christians that are teachers, Christians that are principals. So our goal as a church is to empower you, to let you know who God has called you to be, and not only let you know, but give you the tools that you need, give you the pieces that you need to the puzzle, to encourage you, to empower you, that you may be everything that God has called you to be. That's one main piece that I believe is going to set us apart. The other piece to it, I love music. I mean, music is a major piece.
Especially Elvis.
Elvis, man. You caught in the trap, can't walk out. You know what I mean? So music, but music for me, and I've studied, I'm a meticulous thinker, so music is more than just something that sounds good. But even with music, it's just like this. There's been a study that when you play certain music, you drive faster. It does something to you. The beat, the song, the words. Yeah. Well, there's certain songs that can speak to you, that give you the encouragement that you need. So what we want you to do is, when you walk in, there's going to be some Sundays you walk in their door, and we want you to walk out like you can go out and you can change the world. And then there's some Sundays you're going to walk out and say, hey, I got to work on a few things, and to make sure we're balanced. The other piece, Randy, I think is so vitally important, is that with everything that's going on in America right now, we're seeing a lot of division in our country. And it's really disappointing. That's the best way to say it. We're seeing a lot of division in our country. I think that the church is the place to bring all races together and to say, regardless if you're Democrat, regardless if you're Republican, regardless if you're independent, there's one thing that we have in common, and that's Jesus Christ. And through that, I can disagree with you, you can disagree with me, but there's a way that we should treat each other regardless. And I believe that the church is the one place, in my opinion, the only place that we can bring people together and say it really doesn't matter about anything other than the love that we have for God and the love we have for one another.
Let's talk about a couple maybe sensitive subjects, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You know, if you were to go out and ask just the average guy out on the street, you know, how's your spiritual life?
Sure.
You know, they're probably going to say something like, oh, it's good. You know, I'm a good person, and you know, I'm good with God, or you know, they'll say something like that, right? Is that enough?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because I was that guy at one point in my life. I was a good guy. And I can remember, true story, I can remember knowing that God was calling me to a higher level in my relationship with Him. And my thing was, I'm just going to be a good guy. I'm a good guy. The Bible teaches this, and sometimes we, like I said, one of the mistakes we make is we're not able to explain our faith.
Right.
The Bible teaches that unless there is an acceptance of Jesus Christ into your heart, being good is not enough. The Bible also teaches, look, on your best days, I can treat my wife the best today, I can treat you the best today, I can treat everybody the best, but no matter what, I still haven't done enough, because no matter what, I can't do enough in my own strength to be righteous, to be perfect. It is impossible to happen for me as a human being. So for me, what I have done is accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Reason for that, because of the blood that he shed on the cross. It has now washed away, wiped away. It has dealt with my sins, past, present, and future. Can I explain?
Absolutely.
In the Old Testament, in the book of Deuteronomy, the Bible teaches this, that the blood, and a lot of people, when they sacrifice animals back in the day, what they were doing is they were bringing blood to sacrifice for the sins that was done. The
Right.
Bible teaches that there's life in blood, but sin brings death. You know, simple. In blood there's life, sin brings death. So what they would do in the Old Testament, once a year, the high priest would come, bring the blood as a sacrifice for the atonement of the sins of man. Well, when Jesus came, Jesus went to the cross, and his blood that was shed on the cross, no longer do we have to have a high priest or anyone to go to God for us. Through Jesus Christ now, I can accept him, and the blood that he shed on the cross, his blood now covers the sin. And when I accept him, his blood now covers my sin, past, present, and future. So to that guy on the street, I was that guy. And true story, I had a car accident. That's why I got these cuts on my head. I put my head through a windshield.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, and I knew your name was Randy. I don't know why I was saying anything else.
Oh, you can call me anything you want. It's okay.
So I had a car accident, and this is an absolute true story. I've heard people say that you see your life flash before your eyes. It is absolutely true. It happened to me.
Wow.
In a split second, I saw my whole life from being a child to everything. And the first thought that crossed my mind, or what happened is I hit an 18-wheeler and hit the trailer where they have the bar down at the bottom, took the top of my car off. The first thing that I thought is, I'm going to hell. That's the first thing crossed my mind.
Wow.
That's the first thing crossed my mind. And
And how old were you at this time?
oh wow, I was 18, 19.
Right before you.
Right before
became a Christian.
right before I made the change. And the thing about it, I accepted Jesus Christ at 13. But when you don't have, once again, this is what separates us two: discipleship. You don't have people that mentor, and basically discipleship meaning mentoring. You can give your life to Jesus, come into the church, but if you don't have older brothers and sisters, or people that may not even be older but the same age, but just have more experience.
Sure.
When you don't have people to come along with you, walk with you. I didn't have people to come along with me and walk with me. Although I knew it was the right thing, but yet and still at that age, at 13, 14, you need some people to come in and grab your hand and walk with you. So when I had the car accident, right then I knew some things in my life have got to change. So to that guy that believes, hey, I'm just a good guy, I was that guy. I was the good guy until I saw my life flash before my eyes. And at that moment I knew, hey, there's something bigger, and I've got to tap in and make sure that I'm on the right page.
Right.
Yeah.
What about that Mr. Average guy that he says, you know, Pastor Frederick, I agree with you. You know, I love Jesus. He had amazing things to say, and you know, it is absolutely wonderful. But for me, you know, I'm a Muslim. Or for me, I believe in, you know, the whole world is spiritual, and God's in the trees, and God's in everything, and you know, I choose not to worship on Sundays. I choose to just worship every day. What do you say to that guy?
Well, to that person, there's a different situation. I've studied Islam. I've studied other world religions, just to make sure that I was as balanced as possible. Because in some religions, they don't believe Jesus to be the Son of God. They believe him to be simply a prophet.
Right.
They believe that he did walk the earth, but they don't believe him to be the Son of God. In those situations like that, Randy, it puts us in a situation to know that we're not God. And that gets us back to not beating people up. What to that person, I would do everything that I believe that God has given me to talk to that person, without, once again, beating them up, without once again sending them to hell in the sense of this perspective. Loving them and walking with them. And it may be a process. And sometimes we try to do everything overnight. And the Bible teaches this, that even when we approach people, that the Holy Spirit has already been working on that person. You know what I mean? Let me tell you, one of the biggest things I found out when my first church I pastored, and it was a mind-boggling thing to me. You know what that was? I found out I wasn't God. And it was the most
it was a revelation.
It was revelation to me, because I really thought if I could, I'm young, I'm a young guy, I'm full of
you weren't a doctor, were you?
I'm full of vigor, and you know what I mean. And I thought that if I taught more Greek, if I taught more Hebrew, if I broke the scriptures down better, if I did this, and what I learned, Randy, it doesn't matter how much I do, it's all Him. It's all Him. So even to that person that's that Muslim, even to the person that may be Hindu or whatever the case is, what I would say to that person is, through Jesus Christ, there is a love that you can experience that you probably have never seen, have never dealt with in your life. And what I would say is, give him a chance. Give him a chance. Not only that, but I would also say to that other person that may know that person, that pray for him, pray for her. Pray that God will send people into their lives. Our prayer is that God send people into certain people's lives. They may not receive everything from me at that moment, but there may be someone that God will put in their life that it's a continuation process. It's a continuation process. One way to say it is this: if we kick a door down, if you kick it 100 times and I kick it 100 times, and that door eventually open, the question is, which kick knocked it down? All of them did. All of them did. And we've got to see God as bigger than us, and not bring him down to our little finite way of thinking. God is so much bigger than us, and he's working. We just have to be in tune with what he's doing.
What do you say to Mr. Average that says, well, I thought about going to church, and you Inspire Church sounds like it might be interesting, and I like your philosophy, but there's so many hypocrites.
Yeah.
They call themselves Christians, and then they lie and steal and do all kinds of things, and I just don't want to be a part of it. What do you say to that guy?
I've had that. You go through transitions in life, you go through seasons in life, and I've been at that point where it's hypocrites, da 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 da. What we've got to understand, that the church is the place for people that are going through a process. I would tell that person, the day that you find a perfect church, as soon as you join, that church is not going to be perfect anymore.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Because and you know what's amazing, Randy? I always say this: we forget the process of that we went through when we judge other people.
Right.
We overlook and we judge. I often say we judge everyone else on what they do, and we judge ourselves on our intentions. I intended to do that, but I didn't do it. But we'll judge other people on their actions. The church is a place that is full of people that are seeking God just like the next guy. They're not claiming to be perfect. They are regular people. What we've done is we've allowed that religious mindset to hit us, that when you give your life to Jesus, immediately you go through this magnificent change and you should be perfect. It doesn't work like that. Human beings, we're made up of three facets. There's the soulish man, the spirit, the body. Okay? But when you get saved, your spirit gets saved, but your mindset and your body is still the same. It didn't get saved. So now what you've got to do is put in the work to change the way you think, and your thinking changes, now your actions changes. Your actions change, now your results change. So to that person, I would say, just understand that when you come to church, there are regular people, me included. I often say, if you get into Jesus' line, I'm going to be in there too, trying to say, hey, I need some help. And that's what church is about. It's not about being judgmental. It's not about destroying people. It is, and let me say this because I want to be clear, and it is not about compromising what we believe. I don't believe in compromising what I believe, but I do believe in making a stance on saying, hey, that this is about loving God, loving people, and we should give everyone the opportunity to go through their process of change and growth.
Well, I love how you answered that, and that's a reason to hook up with Inspire Church, right? Because we're all walking down the path of life, just holding hands, helping each other get better and better, and that accountability that you get in a congregation is so important, isn't it?
You know what? That's why I personally love the coming together of the body.
Yeah.
I love that, and it is an accountability factor. It is a piece that gives you that opportunity to say that, hey, Randy sees me, hasn't seen me in a couple of weeks. Hey man, where you been? What's going on? Well, you know, brother, I'm going through something right now, and it's the brothers and the sisters in the faith that hold one another and not only hold the hand, but hold the accountability factor. Biggest piece to the church.
Yeah.
Biggest piece to it.
Well, let's talk personally a little
Sure.
bit here. So, 20 years now in the ministry. What's the best sermon you've ever preached? What was it about?
Wow, man, that's a question that I love.
There's got to be one where you just felt like you could go conquer the world after that was.
My first sermon.
Really?
My first sermon, and the title of that first sermon was "It's Time for a Change." It's time for a change.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that to the point. You know, my first sermon, and I wrote every word out. Like I had a stack of papers. If there was an if there was a breathing mark, I wrote it because I didn't know it better. And my first sermon was called "It's Time for a Change," man. And to this day, matter of fact, I was just on the phone with my cousin the other day. She still got the tape, and the family still reminds me of it. So I'll just go with the first one.
So what's the best sermon that you've ever heard from someone else?
Wow, that's a good question. Wow. That's a good question.
Who's your favorite pastor?
Well,
that you like?
You know what? Right now, I love listening to a little bit of everyone, and no disrespect to anyone. I believe you can learn a little bit from everyone.
Sure.
And I try to keep my mind open. Now, like I said, not compromising what I believe or what I think. Also, I love motivational teachings and speakers because there's information that may not necessarily be in the Bible, but God still directs us to grab the information, financial information, things like that. Robert Kiyosaki, you and I were talking about that earlier. One of my favorite books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, changed my life. Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life. He says, Dad, never let him say no. Let him say what he can't do, because when you say you can't, it stops you from thinking of ways you can.
That's right.
But I'm very grateful for Pastor Vance Pittman at Hope Church and who we're doing some things with, but just people, Bishop T.D. Jakes. So there's a multiplicity of people that I believe that from all spectrums, that may be over here, but the information is there and it all comes from the Bible. So that's the best answer I can give you on that one.
Oh, that's great. So 1 year here in Vegas.
1 year.
And Inspire Church will launch on at the beginning of the year.
Well, what we're looking to do, we want to, and I know it sounds like a long time, but Easter 2018.
Oh, Easter. Okay.
Easter 2018 is what
Be
we're
around
looking
April
at. Around
March
April.
or April, yeah.
To the point I was on the phone all day yesterday, and we got people all over the country for the next 8 months, from August to March. It's 8 months. And what they're going to do is their tithes and offerings, they're going to be sending Inspired Church all the way from Chicago and Florida to help us do what we're doing out here. So we're going to launch in our first service there, and at this point continue to talk to people and make sure that they understand exactly who we are and what we're doing.
Well, that's fabulous. And so what part of town do you think you'll wind up in?
It's and I've only been here a year, so I don't know the streets as well, but IKEA, I think it's right off 215.
Sure.
Right past there, I think it's Durango, over in that area.
It's a Mountains Edge area.
Mountains Edge, I believe it is, and that's one of the areas that
it's a growing area, booming area.
I've been told, for all of those people that if you got a building in Mountains Edge, give me a call. The number will be, I need that building. Give me a call.
If you need a big tax write-off.
Hey, I got 501. You can get your tax write-off. We got you covered. So that's what we're looking to do that area. Yeah. And first of all, I want to say thank you for this opportunity. I really, really, more than you know. One of the things I told you, I said normally I wouldn't have accepted talking about everything right now because the website's not up and all of that. But it was just in my heart that we have a mutual friend that just speaks the world of you, and I said, hey, definitely going to sit down and talk.
Well, it's a double blessing because he speaks the world of you as well. And you were talking about, you mentioned his name earlier, but you were talking about walking your talk and walking the walk and walking what you talk about, and our mutual friend is one of those guys that does that. And to be able to hang around those kind of people, and to be able just to be mentored by them, just by seeing how they live. I mean, it affects you in such a great way, and I'm sure that that's part of what your discipleship program will be about, is about developing people like that really live out their faith and that can mentor other people, right?
Well, and I'll say this, Randy, discipleship for me is being transparent. I think sometimes it gets back to the question of the guy that says, I don't want to go to church because they're hypocrites. And sometimes what we've done is we've perfected the facades of life. And we don't want anybody to know that, hey, I'm dealing with some issues, or I'm growing, or it's a process. Even in the Bible, it talks about that we go from glory to glory. We go from level to level in our growth process. For me, discipleship, mentorship, that's allowing people, there's I won't say his name, I love him very much, young man, Memphis, mentoring, and he was doing a couple of things I didn't agree with. So I had him come out here and stay with us for about a week, and we spent some time together. But I don't beat him up as mentoring him. Say, hey man, look, what you're doing is going down the wrong road. Hey, time to make some changes. And so that's the difference. It's a difference in just telling people about the Bible, and a difference in walking with people and being the Bible in front of them. Allowing people to make mistakes, allowing people to go through things, it's called real life. And I just think at times that we lose the perspective of real life. People go through divorce. We don't love it. We don't like it. People go through divorce. People go through death in their families. We just came through in 2008, one of the worst economic seasons in our country since the Great Depression. People that love God lost their houses, lost their businesses. That's real life. And I just think at times where we fail, Randy, is that we come to church, but we don't address those real life issues. I'm grateful for Daniel in the lion's den, but how does Daniel in the lion's den relate to my life in 2017? How does the Bible become practical teaching for my everyday life? And that is something that I'm just focused on, to make the Bible practical, to make it real, and to make it relevant to what we're dealing with in real life.
Well, we're just about out of time. We could talk for a long time here. This is very exciting. But how can people get a hold of you? And I'm assuming there'll be some special events and things that'll be happening leading up to the launch. But if somebody wants to reach out to you, get to know you, and maybe there's somebody out there who just says, hey, listen, I feel led that this is where I need to be. I mean, I feel like I got to help you. Right.
Well, I think is they going to be able to put the number up?
Yes, they'll have your number is actually probably being shown right here. So
we got a number up. Please give us a call.
Okay.
And what we're doing right now at this point, we're connecting with people, looking for people that are hungry, looking for people that are ready to get out here and be what we've been called to be that difference maker. And it doesn't mean just being socially active, but just letting Jesus live through them. So give us a call. The website matter of fact, I was on the phone today, and gentlemen, the website is being developed, all of that good stuff. But with that being said, please give us a call. We would love, and my wife are big fellowshippers. Let's do dinner. Let's talk. We're going to tell you who we are, and come help us change the world. Come help us change the world.
Well, that's what it's all about, and the world starts locally, doesn't it?
It starts with me and you.
Yeah.
It starts with me and you. You can't get to the world until you first touch your home.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we only have about a minute left, so
Sure.
For the people that are watching us, what words of wisdom do you want to leave them with?
Well, I would tell anyone, you want me to look directly?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would tell anyone that's watching, whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're going through, and one of the things that we sometimes fail and where we make a little bit of mistake, we think that Jesus is only for that person that is homeless. Jesus is only for that person that's in the gutter, but that's not the case. I've met people that had millions in the bank, but they were just as broken, hurting, going through situations. So to whoever you are, even if it's not Inspired Church, and this is where my heart is, we would love for you to come and be a part of us. But even if it's not us, just create that relationship with God through Jesus Christ and develop your relationship with the Father.
Well, Pastor Frederick, thank you so much. I can't wait until Easter of next year. That's a little while yet, but
I'm gonna be back. You're gonna have me back on the show.
Absolutely,
and
we'll do a big
it.
launch, and
Absolutely.
maybe we'll just have to broadcast all your sermons every week. But
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I assume you're probably going to have a mailing list. Keep people updated.
Absolutely. If
Okay.
we already all of that's been started.
Okay.
But the main thing, the person that's over that, they know the technical da 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 da. But I do know a phone number, so call it that. I can't put numbers together.
Go ahead and say it one more time.
The number's on the screen. I'm hoping. Give us a call.
Okay.
And we want to be a part of what you're doing. We want to be a part of your life. God bless you and your family.
Well, thanks so much for being here, and we'll look forward to the big launch next year. And for you, we'll see you next week, same time, same station. Bye-bye, everybody.